Thank you. I'm Uwe Kaspers. I used to work as a social worker for quite a long time. I graduated in what we call social economics, and now I'm a professor for business administration for social services and healthcare services in Germany at the Lutheran University of Bavaria in Nuremberg. You see a picture of Niklas Luhmann. Niklas Luhmann was a very famous sociologist, and he's regarded as the founder of modern system theory. In his lectures, he didn't almost use any charts or pictures at all, but in order to give his students an impression of what a system was about, he just drew this symbol, a horizontal and one vertical line. So the vertical line marks a border, and the horizontal line on the left with emptiness on the right shows that circumstances are different within the system on the left compared to outside the system on the right. So you can easily see the significance of it when you think about your skin as the border of your body as the system. So he took that way of thinking and transferred it to analyzing society. When I was a teenager, my picture of society was very simple. I was thinking in two systems. So there was the system of doing business. And in my mind, these people who were doing business, they were bad. They were following rules that were not mine. So I was doing something completely different. Me and my friends, we were doing good. We were very heavily involved in youth programs, and we were selling coffee to sponsor the Nicaragua revolution back in the early 1980s. So this was my picture, and this is how I grew up. So you may understand that I haven't got into business. I became a social worker. So as a social worker, I really got confused, because I saw that social work in practice was some kind of doing business. Because I saw that the behavior of people working in the social sector was very much driven by the incentives provided by social legislation. So to make it clear, I worked in a home where we were taking care of prisoners, of ex-convicts, people released from prison, and most of them didn't commit a crime. After that, some did. And I was thinking that we really provided a very important service for our society. But when I looked at the way our service was financed, I saw that the money we got was not related at all to the social impact we provided. The money we got was related to the costs we created. And this really spoiled our way of thinking. So first of all, we were thinking how to finance our service. And just in second place, we were thinking how to provide really good service for our clients. So doing good, to me, turned out as something like doing good if it pays, which really made me sad. So in my job and later as a scientist, I tried to reconcile these two systems, the system of economy and the system of social work. I was thinking, how can we really measure the social impact we provide, and how can we make sure that money goes where social impact is provided, and to make sure that those who provide this impact are really rewarded in a fair way. So if I put it into one sentence, let's let money follow social impact. Now, I want to demonstrate to you this way of thinking if we look at incarceration in our countries. There are some amazing figures that may be well known, but if you look at the population of incarcerated people in the US compared to Germany, we find that out of 100,000 citizens in the US, 666 are in prison. Look at the figure in Germany. The figure is way lower. It is 77. Our countries come closer together when we look at the expenses for incarceration. The annual costs for someone being incarcerated sum up to about $32,000 per year in the US, compared to $45,500 in Germany. So it seems the US are better up. But we have to take into consideration the duration of incarceration. An average inmate in the US is kept in prison for 37.5 months compared to 7 months in Germany. So there is a big difference, and there is a big difference in public expenses. So if we look at 100 average inmates in the US, you can easily calculate that if you keep 100 of them for 37.5 months in prison, the government has to pay almost $10 million. So the question is that really a good investment? It would be a good investment if committing a crime was really a singular event in someone's life who is sent to prison. But we all know this is not the case. So let's take 100 average prisoners in the US and 100 average prisoners in Germany, and talk about relapse, talk about those being released from prison and committing a crime again. There are 67%, so 7 out of 10, committing a crime again in the US, and it's almost every second committing a crime again in Germany. But committing a crime again doesn't mean that those people are getting incarcerated again. So we have to compare the re-incarceration rate, and these figures really matter. So in the US, 43.3% of all prisoners released are getting incarcerated again within the next 3 years after their release. In Germany, the rate is a bit lower, but significantly lower. The rate is 33%. So we can create a business model from that. Creating a business model means making life easier, making life less troublesome, saving natural resources, saving money, or saving time. A business model is about creating something that has positive effects for all parties, for those who provide the service, for those who get the service, and for the society. So the technology I want to show you is very simple and heavily tested. It is help for ex-convicts. So we got to provide good probation service. We've got to provide regular counseling. And maybe the most important, we have to provide good vocational training. And we can prove that these measures work to bring down the re-incarceration rate. So if we think about a business model, we have to provide a fair profit. So I hope you agree if I compare the business model that I want to show you to an investment on the stock market. So if we look at the development of the S&P 500 index over the last 30 years, you can easily calculate that the average rate is about 5.68% per year. So this is the profit an investor would expect. And I want to show you how an investment into social services can provide the same profit. So what is the task? What is the challenge? The challenge is, let's bring down the re-incarceration rate in the US to the level of Germany. So let's bring down the re-incarceration rate by 10.2%. In other words, if we take 100 prisoners released from prison, let's make sure that 10 less will be incarcerated again. Okay, now let's talk about these 3 prisoners. The expenses for these 3 average prisoners are roughly $1 million for incarceration for 37 months. Or in other words, this money can be saved if we can avoid the re-incarceration. Well, if you look at it a bit closer, it is not this $1 million, it's a bit less, because we have to take into consideration that if you put someone in prison, this may save social subsidies, like food stamps or subsidies for affordable housing. So I reduce that amount of money, which should be around 100,000 euros. So the net savings are $900,000. So what would someone who might consider investing money into the stock market give for such a program? He might be willing to give $828,000 and demand $72,000 as his profit. I calculated this profit over a period for 1.5 years. So this program might run 3 years, but the investor doesn't need to pay the money in advance, so he pays it every month. So I calculated the profit for 1.5 years. There is no business model without a fair risk assessment. So the prisoners who will not be sent to prison again will pay back because the government saves a lot of money. You see, there is a risk, and the risk that the investor has to take is related to the effects the social service provides. So if we just achieve 2 prisoners less, or 3 or 4 or up to 8, the money saved for the government doesn't come up to the investment. So there is a break-even point at about 9, and there is the range of profit beyond 9. So imagine an investor and a social worker follow the same objectives. So what could we do with that money? So let's take $828,000. What could a social service provider do if we take into consideration that 1 hour of good social work might cost $50? So it might be reasonable combining sessions with individuals and group sessions. So let's take 1 hour of social work with individual counseling and 2 hours of group counseling. So if we take group counseling in a group of 3, this might cost $150, and I calculated that this might cost for an individual about $30 a week. So we would have $80 a week for every ex-prisoner. So how long can this money last? This money can last for about 104 weeks of service. So in other words, we could provide 2 hours of social service, taking that money that is invested into social impact. So if we think about combining the 2 systems of economics and the welfare system, we have to answer 2 basic questions. Does it help? And does it pay back? So if we look at the lower left corner, the decision is clear. Things don't help and things don't pay back, so we better leave it. But in my mind, too often we take decisions in the upper right corner. We get profit out of it, but it doesn't help. So things may work in this corner, but for a society, things don't make sense. It is good that we find lots of people, especially in the US, that are located in the lower left corner. This is the corner of philanthropists. They invest because it helps, knowing that the money doesn't come back in their lifetime. The upper left corner is about social impact investing. Social impact investing means that individuals or corporations invest into social services and they get their money back if the social service proves that it creates social impact. So, next time you think about investments, keep in mind 10 ex-inmates who now lead a decent life and compare it to the value someone else proposes to you. Thank you.